Okay, how about that? Now you can hear me on Twitch, right? Yeah, you can hear me now. You know why? Because for some reason the mute button was on. But mute doesn't mute to Discord, only mutes to Twitch for some reason. Because that's the way things are with Voice Meter. Very powerful software, works most of the time. Fails you when you need it. All right, let's get everybody in here. I'm going to chat about Ember's monetization, especially in light of some of the recent news about Ashes of Creation and New World. Yes, hot topic, huh? Chief Chat has started talking about MMO monetization and how Ashes of Creations. Is he the CEO? Slams New World for their stuff. Creative director. Thank you, Giga. Okay, sending that out. Gonna tweet this out too. Get everybody in here. Twitch.tv Grums. All right. Tweet's gone out. Chief Chat's message has gone out. Welcome, everybody. We do these every Tuesday and Thursday. First of all, some announcements. We have some upcoming stuff for you. Last week, we released a glider tuning phase for Ember, which is a MMO we're working on, a Mech versus Kaiju MMO with waifus. And we are doing a second pass on gliders this week. We're doing things to make it not exactly like Firefall, because remember, we're already pretty different from Firefall, which is, if you don't know, the spiritual precursor of Ember. A lot of people asked me to make what Firefall should have been. And so there was a petition, some crowdfunding, and now we're working for a big Kickstarter and doing a playable mock-up for that. And backers have been playing the mock-up. You can play it too. You can download it today if you want. Just join my.ember.com. That's with an 8, EM8ER.com. And you can join for a newcomer pack, or you can subscribe for our skins, and you can download the earlier builds that way. But we've been working on the glider because gliding was a huge part of Ember. And so that's been interesting. There's a lot that goes into it. And so far, how'd you guys like the tuning to the current glider? We made a little bit of tuning. So I haven't gotten your guys' feedback yet. I read a little bit on the forums. You can see I'm more active on the forums these days. I have been posting to forums.em80r.com. Chalk says too MMO-ish for my liking. I don't know what that means. Gigabear says it's functionally infinite now if you use it right. Yes, we do have infinite gliding. It's not intended. I'm trying to balance infinite gliding with diving speed. The two are related right now, so part of tuning pass 2 is splitting that up. So you'll be getting another build on Thursday where we improve gliding a little more, and we're getting back the ability to get momentum in a dive, because right now when you glide, you don't get a momentum in a dive. A little more work on how we handle lift and angle of attack of the wings for you flight simulator fans. We're not running a full flight sim, neither was Firefall, but we are we definitely we tweaked the turning radius. Glad you like that. And momentum and dive will be in the next build, and you guys can play with that. And Giga, we have to fix infinite gliding. I'm sorry, but we're going to rely on you to find out how that's going. But as usual, we start the stream with some MMO talk. If you don't know, my name is Mark Kern. I'm the creative director for Ember MMO, and before that, you might have heard of me being the team lead for World of Warcraft. So I have a little bit of experience with MMOs and would like to talk about some of the happenings going on. I think some of the most anticipated MMOs coming for PC right now are probably Ashes of Creation, which had a massive Kickstarter and a dynamic sort of world that players build up. And we also have New World coming out of Amazon. And I think they were going to do Lord of the Rings, but I think they canceled Lord of the Rings and stuck with New World. And New World has had some delays. Everyone's had these are massive games. I don't fault anybody for having delays in MMOs. I mean, it happens. These are very complicated games to make. But I guess the topic of monetization came up, and I believe let's see, I have the quote here. So I guess New World. What did New World announce? What did they say exactly? Let's see. Yeah, so New World has been kind of coy with their monetization, right? And I guess they announced that they're going to do some paid convenience features and XP boosts, level boosts, and trade skill boosts. And this is... Oh, is that news? Okay, we'll talk about Riot's MMO being led by Ghostcrawler. That's big news. They must have paid him big bucks for that. But New World, how many of you guys are looking forward to New World? And I don't know if moderators have access to our Twitch chat, but you may want to change the subject title. Let me know if you're able to on this Twitch stream.
It should be set to just chatting currently.
Okay. And is the title sufficiently clickbaity?
We'll take a look at that.
Gotta have the clickbait title or no one watches your stream. So they came out, New World came out and said that, we're not just going to have, and I don't know what their base model is. What is New World's base model? Is it pay once and subscription based? What's the difference between the two? Buy to play, and there was supposed to be cosmetics. Okay, so New World was pay the $70 or $60 to play the game, and then you can buy cosmetics. And then they added, but they're looking at monetizing level boosts and trade skill boosts. Now, level boosts have been around for a while, right? I mean, World of Warcraft has them. And so I guess, people are torn on whether or not level boosts and skill trade boosts are pay to win or not. And I think you've got most people saying they are, and a percentage of them, saying that they aren't. And that's really subjective. What people are sensitive to in games is really subjective. But I guess the big drama came because Ashes of Creation has a lot of eyeballs on it, and especially Steven's personal account, and who's the creative director of Ashes of Creation and a competitor to New World. And he said, I really enjoyed how it was stated they would include quality of life items like level boosts and trade skill boosts, but nothing that affects competitive aspects of the game. Why you do this, Amazon? I was flattered when they drew inspiration from some of my designs, but honestly, who TF made this decision? I just want some new blood in the genre FFS. Wow. Okay, spicy tweet, right? Chris, I have nothing to say. I'm always making spicy tweets. Less so these days, but... and I guess people were really upset about this and saying it was extremely unprofessional to voice his opinion about a competitor's game. I don't know. Ever see what I think the way he said it was probably a little too spicy, but I've seen like Elon Musk slam his competitors uh, without the abbreviated expeltives and stuff. I think you can have an opinion about your competitors. I think, but you have to be careful. I mean, I talked last stream about how at Blizzard we at Blizzard we're always very careful when talking about competitors' games, especially out in public. If we were at E3 and we were looking at someone else's game, we were told never to bash it if we didn't like what we saw because someone might overhear it and it was unprofessional. So I guess I was brought up that way, and so to speak, in my early gaming career at Blizzard. And we had a code word so that if you saw something that you thought sucked, and you wanted to let your coworker know standing next to you at E3, then you said, "Gee, that game is neat. Doesn't it look neat?" And so that was the code word. So if you ever hear a Blizzard, I don't know if they still do this, but if you ever hear a Blizzard employee say a game is neat, he probably or she probably means the exact opposite. So, um, so he goes on, and I guess there was this huge backlash, right? And from the community. I don't probably Ashes of Creations community as well as New World's community, but particularly New World's community, saying it was extremely unprofessional to say that. And so, he issued an apology on Reddit. So Stephen Sharif, the creative director of Ashes Creations, said, "I agree my commentary was unprofessional, and I will endeavor to be more tempered in my response on issues I care about. Sometimes it's difficult when, as a player, I was excited for their MMO and what it brought to the MMO space, which desperately needs new successful products." Well, that's for sure. MMO space definitely needs new products. I have I know we have taken our own flack for our pre-order system, of which I have tried my best to engage and explain how our packages work and how our cosmetics offered are used in variants to actually help build our world. The MMO community is diverse and has many opinions on the aspects of monetizations, so of course we each have our own opinions, and that's fine. But the best thing a company can do is to be upfront about their monetization intents from the start, do their absolute best to stick to what they've said, and if changes are needed, explain why. All right. So, first of all, is it unprofessional to have an opinion about your competitor's game? I think there's a line there. Obviously, at Blizzard, I think it's one thing if to breed bad will in the industry. I don't think you want to do that. But I also think you need competition. I think competition is good for the industry. I think there's a better way he could have said it, specifically about his competitor. But saying it the way he did with the kind of attack and expeltives was probably a little too spicy. But I think you can and should, if you're competing with other MMOs, to say, listen, here's what differentiates us, and we hope that they see the light, that they change their decision because we think that this isn't what gamers want, right? Nobody wants pay to win in their game. Now, some are saying, Giga included here in chat, that this was a PR ploy, that Steven is a pretty sharp marketer, and that this is a good way to get a lot of eyeballs on the issue by attacking it. Maybe yes, maybe no. I think Ashes of Creation has probably more eyeballs on it than New World. So why pick New World as a target? I think if you're doing this for marketing reasons, you would pick maybe the biggest game out there and go after it. I'm not sure specifically if this was a tactic. I mean, it could have been. He could have been saying, "Hey, let's stir some controversy." But I don't think he anticipated the level of controversy here. I mean, maybe he did, but I think he got caught totally by surprise, and the apology was pretty quick to come. So, Ashes of Creation, and so people slammed Ashes of Creation for selling backer packs with to get access to the alpha of the game. you have to pay $500. And then some of their packs also include an early head start, which people said is just as much of a level boost as anything else. So if you become a backer, you get an early start, which, by the way, we've even done with World of Warcraft Vanilla. We've had early, launch stuff since back in the day. And, it's a very interesting thing. So, what do you think? Was this a marketing ploy by Stephen Sharif, the creative director of Ashes of Creation, to drum up controversy and to drive eyeballs to his game, Ashes of Creation? What do you guys think? Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Seems plausible. Maybe. Well, it certainly worked, right? Intended or not, there were articles written about it. People are more aware of Ashes of Creation now. But I tend to agree with Drevo X here. I think he wrote it out of passion. I think that he obviously founded Ashes of Creation out of desire to make a mark in the MMO world. He's got something to prove, unlike a corporation, like New World. There isn't a front person that's gunning for the MMO market that wants to make a huge significant change. So I think in his case, it's quite possible that this was a passion thing. But, I think rather than criticize these different monetizations, I just want to talk about kind of the pros and cons, right? So in the old days, you had subscription-based only models and a box model. You bought the game and you subscribed and you did everything else. But the world has changed. It's tough to get people to try your MMO. And even when they do, there is a tremendous amount of, let's be frank, there's a tremendous amount of money to be made in after sale monetization of your game, whatever game it is, but especially MMOs. And if you sell cosmetics or go all the way to, Korean MMO status and sell gotchas and things like that, you generate a ton of revenue. Easily, if you went gotcha, it's easily 10 times the revenue you'd make out of box games. If you do cosmetics at all, you're going to find typically that most of your sales, 70% of your sales or more, are going to be from after the box. This is hugely important for an MMO versus a single player because an MMO has huge ongoing costs for things like servers, bandwidth, all this sort of stuff. And those costs, they have been coming down, but at the same point, we're also getting more complex. Like Ember is a very complicated game. Its servers will need to be high speed and therefore cost more. And so, in our example, we've said we're going to sell cosmetics, not gotchas, but we're going to let you buy cosmetics. So, the route we've chosen is to sell the box at an indie price, not $70. I think that's a ridiculous price, but like an high indie price, and then have a optional subscription model for cosmetics to get them, at a lower price than you could if you bought them individually, and also to have expansions and DLC for the game that are crowdfunded. We want to make crowdfunding sort of an ongoing model for the game. So as the game gets traction, is popular, we crowdfund it. There is a interesting problem when you just go the subscription route. If you just go the subscription route, one is you are flat out leaving the majority of money on the table. And that's just the unfortunate fact, of life for MMOs. If you don't sell mounts, if you don't sell cosmetics, if you don't sell stuff after the game, you're going to have a hard time competing because ultimately, these games are in competition. What people don't understand is that these games are in competition with each other. You need to be able to create content and be feature competitive and everything else with other games, or these other games are going to basically leave you in the dust because they have more profit and more funding to expand the game, and your core audience will start to churn out and disappear. Churn is a huge problem with MMOs. That's the number of players that leave your game every month, especially in a subscription-based game. So So I think we're entering in a phase where that's just a fact of life. You're going to have some sort of after game sales, not just beyond the box, in order to run a successful MMO. And I think where people get really upset is when the aftermarket sales give you an advantage. But the, but I'm surprised by the number of people that differ on what pay to win really means. Like, how many of you think a level boost in WoW is pay to win? Okay, I see yes, 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 yes. WoW token is yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it is something that I've seen Asmongold talk about, and I agree with, which is you suck away the entire point of the game. The entire point of the game is to advance and progress and to spend a lot of time in this world to show off your investment, not just with your level, but with your cosmetics, what armor you wear, but your level too and your progression. And if you're standing next to a guy and you're both, level 60 or whatever, and one person, how do you know that person got there legitimately or just level boosted? And how does and if they level boosted and people just assume you level boosted, doesn't that devalue your contribution to the game? I mean, your contribution to your character, your own personal growth. Doesn't that sort of cheapen all the time you put into MMOs? And that is, and that's what's bad, because if MMOs remove the time element and the progression element, it becomes a dead MMO. And you start just getting what we have now in a lot of games, which is just dipping in for new content. You become extremely reliant on new content. You boost everybody up so that they can experience the new content. And then once you're out of that expansion, which only takes a month these days with advanced MMO knowledge and players, you got to make another expansion, which is millions and millions and millions of dollars in time and effort the way MMOs are made today. So that's a huge problem. All right, I'm going to open up for questions at this point.
So you're saying level boosts are MMO Keynesianism?
I don't know. I don't follow economics enough to say exactly if it's Keynesian or not. Maybe.
One thing that's fascinating is that at this point, gaming has become so big and widespread that everybody in all walks of life now is into gaming. So what you have is you have the person who has a lot of free time who can just sink tons and tons of hours into a game and level up that way. Then you have the guy who's got 3 jobs and a family and has very little time to play the game. So for that person, leveling up will take them months or years simply because of lack of time.
Yeah, I think you make a trade off there, Ronan. I think what happens is if you want to go after the casual market, the older market, rather than the kids that have a ton of time, who have disposable income, then you're going to make more money if you do level boosts and you do convenience factors that let you progress faster in the game and see all the content. That is the mass market. If you want to be the Costco of gaming, that's what you do. But Blizzard wasn't built on that. I don't know if you know, we used to say that at Blizzard, our aim was not to be mass market. Our aim was to be boutique. Like, instead of being Costco, or let me pick another brand. Okay, instead of being Old Navy of clothing, we wanted to be, Armani, right? We wanted to make the Armani suits. And we knew that we would be making less money, but we were prouder of the fact that we were making a higher quality gaming experience for a smaller audience that appreciated that. And that changed after World of Warcraft momentum made it clear that there was a lot of money to be made. There was a corporate shift within Blizzard to really become Old Navy, right? To really become mass market. Blizzard always rode the line, though. They were Armani, but they did things that sort of broadened it and made it more casual and approachable so that other people could try on the Armani suits. But, I think when people associate OG Blizzard with current Blizzard, that's really what they're talking about. The approach is completely different. Blizzard was a high-end brand designed to cater to, you know, to a large set of casual gamers, but not mass market, right? We wanted to capture what we called the hardcore audience, and then the area around it, the more casual but still influenced by the hardcore players. We called it the donut theory. And the whole donut theory was that, the center was the hardcore, and then the fleshy outside was the casual player. But now we're in a state where, I know it's a terrible analogy, I didn't make it. It was the founder of Blizzard that made it, one of the founders, Alan Adham. But it gets the point across, right? So we call it the donut theory. And then, you have now, outside of the donut, you've got maybe, I don't know, what's outside of the donut? The entire tray of donuts, right? The entire baker's dozen box of donuts. And if you want to go after that, you got to go after people who don't have a lot of time. But I think that works for a lot of games. But I think in an MMO, it's self-defeating in a way, where you'll make a lot of money up front maybe, but you also increase your production costs because you're chasing content updates to keep the casual are going to burn through it so fast because you made progression so meaningless. And there's no social aspect because people don't stick around to sort of we used to look up to players in MMOs who had like fancy armor and stuff like that and high levels, and it was like, wow, I want to be like that. And you would join their guild, and they would help you out, and you would like do more. And the problem with MMOs now is what Giga's pointing out is that, when you go after this progression means nothing model, monetization is everything, then you start going after that, and you start devaluating not just the level, but all your old content. I mean, when you level boost, you're like saying, yeah, all that content we made for $200 million in WoW, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. And you're basically paying to cheat yourself out of an experience, I think. I think it really hurts MMOs in the long run. I think it's why retention in MMOs is so difficult. I would rather go for the smaller audience, and I think you can do things to mitigate the time sink. One thing that I talked about a lot during Firefall development was the fact that, social activities and group activities, guild activities, required a lot of synchronous play. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if you want to go do a raid, you all got to be online. You all have to be been online regularly during the week to get your unlocks with everybody else, and then you go do these activities together. And I think the world now has moved to an asynchronous model of communication, at least on the internet, right? Like Discord, you can scroll through and see past messages. Text messaging is not like a phone call. You can check it at any time, and you don't have to receive it immediately and drop what you're doing. And so we have a model where we have less time, and the games and sites that let you do things in smaller bite-sized chunks of activity and to be able to socialize asynchronously with other people is where we need to be. And so when I talk about, Firefall armies or the houses in Ember that will be rolling out after launch, I talk about how guild goals need to be distributed goals, that these are not, it's not centered around raid activity. It's centered around sort of like everybody contributing on their own when they can, and seeing the overall progress together without forcing everybody to be online at the same time at the exact same moment. So I think that's going to be important. Your whole game doesn't have to be like that, but I think if you want to see more socialization in game, you want to see more of this stuff, you do need to link that up and have an asynchronous way to socialize in the game and an asynchronous way to do guild events. All right, so taking questions here. Please ban me asked, do you think squatting people when they log in will help with social elements? PlanetSide 2 does this. I mean, we did that with Thumpers. I think that can help, but I don't think you want to overuse it because you don't want to be put into a pickup group every time. Margaret, thank you. Big Daddy Mark Kern is back online. Yes, I am. Thanks for coming back to the stream. Yeah, mobile games with guilds work like that, says Mercy Shield. Mercy, wait, Mercy I Shelled. Some mobile games with guilds work like that due to limitation of mobile. Yeah, mobile games are a great example of that. Mobile has to be completely asynchronous play, and I think we can learn from that. I think MMOs are too synchronous right now, and it limits their popularity because nobody got time like that. Jazz, thank you. Yes, it's a limited edition shirt. I think it was from Loot Crate back when Loot Crate was cool. Yeah, and we talked about this on WoW. We talked about how we need to focus on making the player feel like they achieved something in 30 minutes of play, right? Short session times need to feel like you're able to advance. Chalk says chatbox RP for me seems like a sign of failure on the part of the devs. I never use the chatbox RP in, say, Deep Rock. With RP content built into the game, you don't have to resort to playing pretend in a pretend world. I'm not sure what you mean, Chalk. Are you talking about like role-playing servers? Or are you just talking about communication between players? And what features of chatbox RP is failing you? I'm in Discord chat, by the way. We run two chats. One is in Twitch, and the other one is running in our Discord server. If you haven't joined our Ember Discord server, please do so now. Our moderators will post a link. We do raffles here. We're going to be doing some raffles today. So please jump on in to our Discord and join us there. Also important is though, Mercy Shield says, also important though is that the player also does not get time gated. The worst feelings when I have a gate time. Do you mean like timed quests? And you feel like you got to do them in a certain amount of time? Chalk, I know what you mean. In-world communication tools, emotes, voice lines, etc. Yeah, I think MMO chat has fallen way behind, and that's why in Ember, in the current phase, you see that we've already included some of the features of modern chat. You have emoji support. I don't know how many MMOs actually do emojis, very few, but I think emojis have got to be in there, and particularly chat history. Being able to scroll through, especially in guild chat, and see what was posted before versus jumping in and not knowing what people have been talking about. I think that helps keep the conversation going. People can get a quick snapshot of what people are talking about and be able to join in without having to sit around and wait and try to pick up the thread. Or if they miss something, they can go back and scroll through. That's why our chat works more like Discord than it does a traditional MMO chat. How long is the guild history retained for? Well, I think a lot. I don't know the exact limit, but we store a lot of chat history. And we basically use a backend called Firebase, which is the same backend that Discord uses to store its chat. Yeah, right now we're limited to 50 messages, but there's no reason why once you reach the 50 message limit, you can't pull in more messages on scrollback. But I think we'd like to keep it pretty reasonable. Oh, they added history for guild chat on WoW Retail? Good. Yeah, I think that needs to happen. Yeah, features like that need to happen to help socialization and communication. But, man, let's get back to this drama between Ashes of Creation and New World. How many people thought it was unprofessional of him to comment on that? To slam Amazon for monetizing New World the way they are. Little bit, Jedi says. I'm just getting a temperature because I have no idea. Some people think it's okay. Giga thinks it was the language used. It's hard for me to say. I'm pretty careful about competitors, but if it's Blizzard, I'm pretty spicy because I got pissed about Hong Kong. I was very upset with that, and I don't like a lot of what the company's become. So I'm very outspoken about Blizzard, especially since everybody I know is gone now. All of OG Blizzard is essentially gone. And I kind of want to hold them up to their prior standard. You know, the stuff that I wanted to do when I joined Blizzard. Yep. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of following where Giga is too. I think it's okay to criticize your competitor and to highlight your advantages and disadvantages, but the way he did it was probably too spicy.
It should be known that the game industry is kind of smallish and interconnected. You could be working with someone one day, be not working with them another, and then connected to someone they just came from working with. It's amazing how many times I will talk to someone and let them know I'm working on a project for Mark Kern, and they say something like, "Oh yeah, I worked for him," or "I worked for one of one of his people." And it's like it's so interconnected. It's like a small family somehow. Even though the industry is big, it's somehow still small. So
Yeah, it
if you
is.
if you come at each other too hard, it's like what happens if you're working together later, you know? So
Yeah, it is. It is pretty small, but I would say it's actually bigger now, Ronan. I think COVID changed things. It used to be that studios, and I predicted this, right? I didn't know COVID was coming, but I said, listen, the days of packed game offices where we're elbow to elbow, and I used to show the picture of Bungie's offices and how packed they were. I said, that's over. I said, people are going to want more office space, more privacy for productivity. And I said, people are going to move out of cities. Things are going to be much more remote in the future. And people were like, "No, you're totally barking up the wrong tree. That's not going to happen." And of course, COVID happened, and now everyone's like, "Hey, everyone gets to work remote, and it's awesome." And everyone's moving out of California, and cities are emptying out of cities, and it's all happening. And COVID was sort of like the accelerant that proved my point. Unfortunately, it was COVID that did it. But you know, when that happens now your talent pool is a lot broader, and you don't, because it was before you had to convince people to move to wherever you were, and now that you don't have to do that anymore. So in some ways it's a small tiny community, in other ways that's changing, and it's broadening out. But I mean, for someone like me who's worked in the industry this long, you're going to run into people that work with me, you're going to run people that know me, right? So that's pretty much going to be par for the course. All right, where do I stand on monetization? I don't like loot boxes. I don't like it because you're I don't like convenience boosts either. Because we did that in Firefall. You could pay to speed up crafting, and you could pay for essentially loot boxes for stuff. And what it did was it does something degenerate to your game design, because now you're designing to make your game suck a little bit, or maybe suck a lot, so that you drive people to monetization. And for me as a game designer, I really hated that. I want to make games because I want to entertain, because I want to make something fun and engaging, and I don't want to choose a monetization model that forces me to make a game worse in order to sell more. That being said, I have no problem with aftermarket sales and cash shops, because that's the reality of the world we live in. If you want your game to survive and compete and be as well supported in features as everybody else's, you need another source of revenue beyond just the box sales. So what we've chosen is cosmetics, non-gacha cosmetics that you unlock and earn. That you can either unlock and earn in the game, that are seasonal. That's very important to keep the rarity up, to keep the desire for these skins up, and to make sure that you get the most out of a skin, because they're expensive to create. And but I don't like anything that boosts XP. I because I'm not going to sit there and say Ember is going to compete with the big casual MMOs that are, like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy. That's not our thing. And if we tried that, we would fail because we're a small team. We have limited resources. So we have to go a different route. We have to go for the niche MMO market who want this experience, who want the fantasy of a sci-fi world of shooter-based combat, high mobility, mechs versus giant monsters and kaiju, things like that. That is what we have to go for. And they're going to be a little more hardcore audience. And I think that is important to do. And uncensored waifus, yes. I mean, we're not super lewd or anything. But, and I think we're passionate about that. We're passionate about achieving this type of experience and to deliver sort of like what Firefall was supposed to deliver in beta before the new owners came in and changed everything. So, let's see. Okay, so the other stream I talked about is like when you get these cosmetics, I believe that they should be earned too, because progression is very important, right? I keep talking about that. Asmongold talks about that. I totally agree with him with that. Is that you have to achieve a sense of progression, of value in the world, of your activities in the world, because people put a lot of time into this. And if you just sell the cosmetic and anyone can wear an epic cosmetic, you take away a huge part of that. I mean, level is part of it. Ember doesn't have level. Ember has tiers, but same concept. There's the progression built into it. But if you can just wear the most epic gear that anyone else can, and pilot the most epic mech just because you bought it, I think that takes away from it. So what we talked about last stream was building in a requirement that says, yeah, you have it, and it's ready and waiting for you, but you have to reach tier 4 tech to wear it. And I think that's okay. And I think that actually creates a drive for players to stay in your game and play, which is very important for MMO. You want a good core number of concurrent players in the game because that's what players look at. If your world is empty of other players, people don't stick around. So I think that's an interesting concept. And then I was reading this whole Ashes of Creation debacle, and I guess Ashes of Creation is doing something similar with their cosmetics. Can anyone confirm that you can buy a cosmetic, but there is a progression in it that you have to achieve a certain level in order to wear it? I don't know if they're doing the same thing. You only have to have the relevant item. Okay, I don't know what that means. Like a mount of the right class to skin over it. Okay, so they're not doing that exactly. Please Ban Me also mentioned an interesting idea, leveling up cosmetics. So you get a better version of it. I think cosmetics with progression is a very cool idea. I don't think we can do it for everyone because that's a lot of work to build into every cosmetic. But I think that's a really cool idea. So that, maybe you do get the epic skin, but you unlock pieces of it along the way. And we can do that for some, but not for all. But I think there's a really good idea in there. I think, I'm not for XP boosts or crafting. I think Warframe sells crafting time, right? You can pay to craft stuff faster. I'm looking at chat here. What's wrong with just the subscription? Horf asks. Because you don't make the money. And the problem with the subscription model is once you go through the content, people don't stick around. You get a lot of churn with that. But mostly you're just leaving a ton of money on the table. And why is that a problem? Because there's a lot more games out there and a lot more competition. And if you aren't updating your game regularly with content, you are going to lose players to other games. And if you want to keep up with the content and you want to create new updates and features for your game, you need to generate revenue to do that at a rate that's equal to your competitors. And 70% or more, or 10x your revenue, is going to come from cash shop items versus your subscription. It's a huge difference. And I don't think people want to pay a subscription anymore, because here's what happens with a subscription. It's like a gym membership, right? Here's why it's bad for churn. This is why subscriptions make players churn out. Because if you're paying for a gym membership and you don't go, what do? You cancel your membership, right? You say, I'll come back to it later. And so the churn rate goes up if you have a subscription-based only model. But if subscriptions are not present in your game, then you don't have that problem of people canceling, but you're funding the game with other things instead. So that's, to me, the big reason why you don't want to go just subscription-based. One is you're not going to be able to compete with everybody else because everyone's making 10 times more than you are. And so your live services are going to suck, and your live support's going to suck compared to your competitors, and players are going to notice that. And two, people don't want a subscription. They sit there and they see it, and they don't, and it's like eating up their time, and they're not playing the game, and so they don't want to subscribe. What we do is, for Ember, is we do an optional monthly sub for skins. It's sort of like, I guess it's similar in a way to a season's pass, right? But it's different. It's a monthly thing, and you get new skin drops monthly, and you can get them at a lower cost. And like I said, we'll probably add some things. If a skin is particularly rare or particularly epic, you're going to have to be a certain tech tier in order to use it. And no gotcha, no random stuff. The gambling stuff is just cancer. So if I wasn't clear, Ember is a indie price to buy up front, because that helps an indie studio get a lump of revenue in the beginning to launch services and keep everything running and start creating content for the next update. And then an optional subscription for things like cosmetics that you can also obtain in-world, but you can obtain cheaper and easier through that get vaulted, that rotate through, and cosmetics that you can just buy out of pocket. So if there's stuff you want, you don't have to do any sort of random stuff for it. You just say, I want that skin, and you go buy that skin. You get exactly what you want, what you pay for. You're not gambling away your money on it. And if you don't want it, you don't have to do any of that stuff. And then if you want, and then for us, because we like crowdfunding, we like not having investors or keeping outside investors as minimal as possible. We want to crowdfund the expansions, right? Say, hey, if you like the game, we want to add a new aspect to it. Oh, now we're going to add, guild support to the game, which is the first thing we plan after launch. And we're going to do a crowdfunding for that. Because, you need multiple crowdfundings in order to pay for all this. You can't just have one crowdfunding and build an entire MMO out of it. We're doing some things that are different from other MMOs to keep costs down. One is that, it used to be, it's like, well, we're always going to be virtual offices, right? That's a huge cost that we don't have to deal with. But now everyone's doing that. And the other thing is, we're focusing on dynamic content and emergent player gameplay and socialization factors and events versus static content that you run through, like, end level raids. For us, the game is not about end level raids. It's not about racing to the top of the tech tier and doing that. It's about living this sci-fi world. It's about expanding the world and making it bigger through player activity and actually changing the world as you go. And then fighting to defend it from the NPCs who are trying to change it the other direction. So you've got a push-pull between the players trying to make the world bigger and make the world better, terraform it, build bases, and then they have to defend it because the NPCs are trying to tear it all down and shrink the world on you, or take it over, and then you got to fight them. So that's the push-pull here that I think makes it a lot more feasible for us to do engaging gameplay without creating a ton of static content in the world that continuously has to be made. Now, that doesn't mean we won't add more content over time, but we will do it in the form of dynamic events. We'll do it in the forms of gameplay that has its own progression too. Like, take the Thumper encounter in Firefall. The Thumper encounter in Firefall didn't have a lot of progression. There were 3 levels of Thumper, right? Which was 3 levels of difficulty. But the original idea I had for the Thumper encounter was that it was a mini game that changed the higher level of encounter it was, right? And so you could sort of like transmute this. In one encounter, it might just be enemies, and another encounter, a level up. Now there's mini kaiju, and another level up from that. We throw in another gameplay mechanic, and and the risk and reward changes along the way. I'm not going to say exactly what yet because we haven't fully fleshed this out. But the idea is that the encounter, dynamic encounter, has a progression to it. And so it's not always the same, that there is something new that happens along the way the more you do it. Festival asks, can't the cash shop fund the expansions? Festival, I don't think so, not alone. I mean, it depends how successful the game is, right? Cash shop keeps the lights on. The cash shop will pay salaries and keep the live services running and the servers, the cost of the servers and bandwidth. If it's extreme, but Festival, we're not doing loot boxes. So that means we're going to make a lot less than the companies that are. So I don't think it'll be quite enough if we want to achieve the same level of updates as other companies. I think crowdfunding the expansion in addition to the cash shop, because we're not doing gambling mechanics, because we're leaving a lot of money on the table, that's going to be a necessity. I mean, maybe it won't. Maybe the cash shop will be so successful we never have to do that, but we'll see. I tend to think that, especially if you're talking about comparing our updates to our competitors' update who are offering pay to win boosts and things like this, and maybe gotcha stuff. I think that's going to be a little tight. All right. So Bold Octarine asks, is an ideal situation you want a steady revenue stream so you can calculate your production costs? It's down to predictability. Not just predictability, but smoothing out the revenue flow. Blizzard, before we did service-based games, before World of Warcraft, was kind of like feast or famine, right? It was always profitable, but you'd have these big spikes, around game releases and Christmas time, and then you rely on what's called your back catalog, selling all your older games as they age out. And what's interesting is that, these spikes were great when they happened, but that other times you weren't selling much at all. And so we needed a product. And I said, listen, the reason we need to do World of Warcraft and the reason why it's going to be such a good thing for the company is it's going to even out those peaks and valleys. So it's not going to be feast or famine where we have, a huge boost of sales when we ship a game and then nothing until we ship the next game. I said, we need a steady base so that we can build, more games, so we can build games consistently, rather than in these start-stop furtive sort of motions. So that's what a recurring revenue stream does for you. Yeah, Jedi, the beta thumper encounters were like crack in Firefall. I heard after I left they got rid of thumping entirely. Is that true? Do you think dailies are good at keeping players? Yeah, I think they return players, but I think it's short-lived. I think people get tired of them. They get burnt out, and you feel bad if you miss your daily. I think that's the big problem. You feel bad if you miss your daily, if you're not logging in every day. And you log in, you do your daily, and you log out. I think we've got to find other ways to retain people and have them stick around a little longer in your game. Blizzard was always good at turning negatives into positives. So, we wanted an XP, basically an XP penalty if you played too long, right? Like we wanted you to take a break and not burn out on the game. And you wanted to basically... So what we did is instead of making it a penalty, we made an XP bonus. We flipped the psychology, and we said if you log out and in, you get an XP bonus. And it's the same thing as a penalty, but it's phrased positively. So same thing with dailies. I think there's a better way to do that, where instead of it being a negative, where it's like, oh God, I got to log in and do my daily, that it becomes a positive. You can flip it. Maven says they changed thumping in Firefall to the point where it's no longer a social activity. It became more valuable if you were soloing the whole process. Yeah, I don't agree with that. Thumping needs to be social. And I think the dynamic groups that we had in Firefall were good for that. I think that, and one thing I didn't like about the changes in thumping in Firefall was when we took out the pauses between waves and the setup. In early beta, when you went thumping, there was a sort of moment of anticipation where you started thumping and you knew the waves were coming. But engineers had time to set up turrets, defenses, you had time to buff each other, that sort of thing. And you talked. You had a chance to actually chat with each other. And then between waves, you had a chance to sort of catch your breath and do that again. I think that's valuable. That's just a little bit of downtime you need for some socialization and some cooperation, some strategy. I think there needs to be pauses in the waves and that sort of sense of anticipation that something's brewing and that you're preparing for it. And you can talk about it. You can talk about your strategy between waves and what you're going to do. And also, gloat about whatever loot you found during that time. But when we changed it to removing the pauses and making thumping just a continuous activity and there was no setup time, I think that broke a lot of socialization. You don't need a lot of downtime, just a little sliver of downtime. Little slivers of downtime in order to increase socialization in your MMO, because that's what's sticky. That's what people stick around for. Right now, people only stick around for content in MMOs. I'm done with the content. I'm done. Log off, It used to be that people stick around for the socialization aspect. Now, there's lots of other ways to socialize in games, outside of games now, and you don't need that as much. But I think it's wrong to abandon it entirely when it's such a powerful tool to keep players in your game. All right. Well, we do some raffles here on the stream for our game Ember. People who want to play the pre-alpha for our Kickstarter, where we do a very tiny slice of gameplay. We're focused on combat and mobility right now. And we're going to do a raffle for it in Discord. So join our Discord server over here. No, over here. It's hard to point when cameras are reversed. And I think we're going to do, since Maven is here, we need to do some dollar packs, Ronan.
Dollar packs, y'all.
All right. So while you're getting ready for that, I'll answer maybe two more questions here. Zingo wants to know what Crix's stance is towards third-party programs like Radeon Pro and or AHK. This is going to be embarrassing. I don't know what those are. And we're actually partnered with AMD. Are these overlays? I mean, why would we have a problem with an overlay? Why is this controversial? I don't know what AHK is, though. Auto hotkey. You can try. We're an action-based game. It's very hard to macro Doom. But you can try. Yeah, I don't think macros are anywhere near as valuable in Ember as they are in WoW or tab-targeted games. Another question was, the last demo was a good good example of the social aspect. Because we spawned in Chad. Yeah, that was an Easter egg that Toshi and Ben snuck in. Chad was sitting there, and without knowing it was just a dummy, we organized to try to fight it. It's a weak point defense. Well, I think, yeah, that's socialization. Dynamic events that are surprises that happen in the world, I think, are very powerful, and they draw people together. And people can have fun just doing really simple stuff like that. Thoughts on modding for MMOs like boss timers on WoW or DPS meters? I don't have a problem with those. People, if it's just giving you more information it is enhancing your metagaming, but this is the world we live in, right? This is, people really dissect right down to the tick what your game is doing, and that's just part of it now. There's no way to avoid it, so you might as well plan for it. PSO2 New Genesis had their closed beta last weekend. Oh, I've been hearing a lot about that. It's an expansion for PSO2, right? Dynamic events had a pop-up on the UI. People flocked to them. Yeah. The thing about our dynamic events, and I don't know how PS2 does it, but back when Firefall was doing them and other games were doing them, there, we were the only ones that were the dynamic event could occur anywhere in the world. The other games like Guild Wars that were touting dynamic events, there were always sort of like a static theme park type event that happened in the same place in the world over and over again. So I don't know how, and I think that's changed because people used to say, "Oh, it's impossible to do that." Even our own programmers on Firefall were saying, "Well, it's impossible. We can't have a dynamic event that appears anywhere in the world." And I was like, "Here's how you do it." They said that's too difficult. Well, now it's trivial, right? People are like, "Of course you can do it." So I don't know how PSO does it, but that's a game I want to check out. I'm going to play Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I'm going to play some PSO2. A little more to it, Gigabear, than random number generators. You have to sort of like figure out where stuff's going to spawn because you don't know the terrain. It can happen on any terrain. But now is the time for raffles. So if you'd like to win a dollar pack for Ember, which gives you access to a ton of useful things, please go and check out our Discord. I'll hand it over to Ronan now so he can get that going. Let's bang out 3 of those suckers.
So shall it be. Okay, y'all. So some time ago, we had something called Milestone 3. It was our third fundraiser for Ember stuff. And so back then, we set a goal for the community to reach. And it was relatively small. And you guys, you just crushed it within, like, I forget if it was hours, but definitely within a day. So then we added a stretch goal and, just a higher amount. You guys crushed that. So then again, you crushed that. So then we had this idea. Let's say we want to get more people involved. So let's say if you put in just $1, there'll be a certain number of stretch goals you get just for that single dollar. You guys crushed it. So we added another one of those and you crushed it. And it kept going until eventually we had this huge amount of money that you guys made possible. And of course, in result, a ton of stretch goals that everybody gets just for a single dollar. Milestone 3 was crazy awesome, and it was all thanks to you guys. So we had all these rewards for a single dollar. But here's the sad news. Well, the Milestone 3 is over. It's gone. It's past tense. You can't get it anymore. Or at least that would be true, if not for the forethought of one of our wonderful community members. Maven thought, you know what, I'm going to buy a bunch of these dollar packs that I can give away later. And so that's what we're about to do. We're going to do a raffle to get you access to M3, if you win, of course. Now, just so it's clear, the dollar pack comes with tons of those stretch goals. It also gives you access to things. If you want to upgrade that dollar pack, it gives you access to other things in Milestone 3 that you can't get anymore. So this will be your opportunity not only to get all those stretch goals things, but also to have access to other really cool, no longer accessible bits and pieces for Ember. All right. So because there might be some new people today, we're going to run a test raffle to make sure that everybody knows how it actually works.
I guess we're a little guilty of FOMO on this one.
Yeah.
Maybe in a big way because of the bikes.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the Firefall motorcycles. There are mounts in the game, and they will work with your light frames now, rather than just your pilot.
Oh, that's a big reveal.
Was it? Did I let something slip?
I think that's a big reveal. I don't think that was confirmed until right now.
Well, because we made the light frame smaller, right? More Firefall-like.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. It just makes sense. Darn it. All right, let's do it.
Okay, so here we're going to do the test raffle first. The test raffle is for Faye's thanks. What you're going to see is a sentence from Faye. Underneath that, you're going to see a sentence from Emberbot. And underneath that, you see a notepad emoji with a pencil on it. You're going to want to click on that notepad. There'll be other emojis that people will place. Ignore those. They do nothing for you. Just click on the little notepad emoji. Now, you're going to want to click it once. It puts you in the running. If you click it twice, it takes you out, so don't do that. And once again, remember, the other emojis are just there for show. So, Faye, let's go ahead and do the test raffle. Let's show people what it looks like. Again, test raffle. This is just for Faye's thanks, which, of course, is priceless. But does not give you any extra things in Ember. So new people, I hope you're listening. Greeters, please remind everyone to join us here on Chief Chat so they can hear me rambling and Grums dropping the knowledge.
Welcome all new Reapers. Is everyone ready to try the test raffle? Let's see if you can win my thanks. On your marks.
Face
Get
thanks
set.
is invaluable.
Click.
And yes, please remember when the raffle is up, please do not post anything because we want everybody to have a chance to see it. We don't want it scrolling away at light speed.
While you guys are practicing the raffle, can someone explain to me the difference between PSO2 and PSO2 Genesis? I thought it was just an expansion, or is it a whole new thing?
Our resident expert on that is at work right now, so she can't answer.
Oh, and you got to talk in Twitch because you can't talk in chat here. You get muted during a raffle.
Exactly. Congratulations, Farius. You win Phase. Thanks.
So it's a whole new game, huh? All right. When's it coming out? June. All right. I'll stop asking questions that make people want to type in chat, Ronan. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay.
We're going to do the real raffle now.
We're going to do the real raffle. We're going to do 3 of them relatively quickly. So let's do this. All right, Faye, fire him off.
All right, here we go. Get your clicks ready. Set. Click.
And silence everyone.
Nefarious, it wouldn't be the first time that someone actually won Face Thanks and then went on to win the raffle. It does happen. Your luck does not run out. I like to think of luck as love. The more you give out, the more it can come back to you.
So tempted to ask a question right now and get people muted for talking inappropriately at an inappropriate time.
Congratulations, Duxilus. You win a $1 pack. What you're going to do is you're going to send me, I'm Ronan, you're going to send me a private message right now, and you're going to say, hey, I won a $1 pack. Here's my Ember ID that I use on myember.com. Okay?
Now, the $1 packs are a little bit of a tease because they don't actually get you access to the demos or the game, but they are upgradable at any time. You can upgrade packs on my.ember.com, and for the difference, the price difference in the pack, and not only do you get all the stretch goals on release, but you also get access to the demos and other perks of the pack. So they're kind of a coercive sort of thing. It's like, hey, you want a $1 pack, but if you really want to maximize it. So talk about monetization. That wasn't actually intended, but, well, maybe it was. We wanted to encourage people to consider becoming a pre-backer, and so this is a good way to do it. But it's also just fun to give away, and it's really unique. You don't have to do anything because once the game releases, you get access to all this stuff if you buy a copy of the game, and you just get that right off the bat. But if you want access now to sort of the demos we're doing, as well as to lock in some of the perks that you can't get, because each funding round for the game has different perks associated with it. You can upgrade the pack at any time up until a month before Kickstarter. A month before Kickstarter this year, we're going to put a pause on that. All right, we got 2 more packs, right?
Yeah, let's do number 2, Faye. Go for it.
Let's do it.
All right. On your marks, get set, and click.
There it is. Let's see who gets lucky.
No chatting during the raffle. That's so it doesn't scroll off screen. People need to click on that notepad icon.
The winner is Shadow.
Shadow. All right.
All right. Okay, let's do the third one.
Let's do the third one. Yes, be sure, if you won today, be sure to send your Ember ID to Rodin.
That's right, folks. If I don't have it, you can't get it.
All right. Ready, set, and click.
There it is, folks. The last raffle, at least for the moment. Now is your chance.
Here we go. Here we go. 50 entries. 51. Ghost Viper.
Ghost Viper.
Congratulations on winning a dollar pack with all unique perks.
That's right. All kinds of stuff you can't get anymore. Congrats. Send me your private message right away. Let me know that you won a dollar pack. And of course, give me your Ember ID that you use on myember.com. That's 3. Back to you, Grumps.
All right. So, usually at this point, at the top of the hour, I turn the conversation towards Ember. I want to give you guys a little bit of an update. So we are working on a new build for Thursday. Thursday is going to be Glider Phase 2. And we're working on giving you acceleration during a dive, which is what we've been reading the feedback from Phase 1 of Glider. Somebody asked, why are you releasing partial updates to Glider? Well, it's because we want to see what we're missing. You guys are a lot better at spotting things than we are sometimes, because you can get too close to a product. So I think sharing some stuff early, I mean, I believe in like super transparency, right? You're getting builds as soon as we make them. You're seeing the actual state of the game advance. I think as crowdfunders of a game, you deserve that. That's a really good way to operate. You have to have some confidence though, because you are sharing stuff that is half finished or kind of broken, and the community has to understand that. Maybe as we get bigger as a community, we have to sort of like space it out a little more and make sure it's a little more polished, because you get a lot more people who aren't following the community every day, that are more casual and just sort of like dipping back in, and they don't really understand the process. But for now, we've been doing a build every week, except for next week. So and I'll talk about that in a little second. But right now, what we're working on is acceleration during dive, making sure we don't have infinite glide in the game. I'm sorry, Giga. I know. Everybody who has an old Firecat beta build's probably sorry too. But we don't want gliding to be completely infinite. So we're interested in if you can break it, and if you find a way to do infinite gliding, please let us know, because we do have to address that. The other thing we're doing is that you guys have requested is stalling. In Firefall, in Ember, when you stall right now, you just go into falling mode, right? Your wings collapse and you just go into jetpack and you start falling. But what we're doing now is we're adding the nose dip. In Firefall, when you stalled the glider, you would dip down and you had a chance to pick up speed and recover again during the glider dive. So we're trying to get that in for this demo. And this demo will be Thursday. Thursday we'll be dropping a new demo for everybody. And next week we're going to take a break from demos, mainly because Burning Crusade is out. I'm not playing it, but some team members are, and some people are going on vacation. But the art team's going to be continuing to work on stuff. We're doing a huge amount of work on the art pass for the game, because we're elevating all the graphics for Kickstarter. You guys have seen some work in progress for that. I'm not going to show you everything from the art pass, because we do want to save that. But there's some really good stuff coming that I'm very excited about, and we'll be hard at work on that stuff. So that's what's happening with Ember. And we are also working on the Thumper encounter. So we hope to have like the base skeleton of that up and running, not next week, but sometime in the near future. But you can see the builds are accelerating, because we're getting closer and closer to Kickstarter. We want to get Kickstarted out this year. We want to launch the full-time team on the game. So yeah, I guess that's the big news, is that Thumper encounter, a version of it, is coming. And it's only going to have one enemy, right? It's only going to have the Tsihu. We don't have the beast mode in yet, which is the other thing we're going to put in there. And but we're going to be doing a lot of AI stuff on it, and Azul's been working very hard on that stuff. New chapter coming for the book. Chapter 9 is coming, and Chapter 9 is going to be very interesting for the novel. One thing that struck me was on Twitter. I'm at Grums on Twitter, my Twitter feed. we were talking about comic books. We were talking about Western comics versus how anime and manga approach it. And one thing I liked about, and this is related to what we're doing with Ember, one thing I really like about anime is that, the anime itself often doesn't make money by itself, right? There's like a microcosm of expressions of that IP. It's a clear singular vision, and you have the manga, you have the light novel, you have the toys, and they all go in to support this new original IP. That's what we're trying to do with Ember. That's why we're doing a novel that supports Ember, also because it helps the lore of the game, helps us develop the lore of the game. That's why we want to do a tabletop precursor to the game. That's why we want to sort of do these ancillary things to build sort of a universe of media products that all tie in together to make the main thing that much more enriched, right? Like, I don't think the novel's going to make a lot of money. I don't think the tabletop's going to make a lot of money, but I think they feed into that. And I've been asking, so, there's a new chapter coming out for the novel, and it's going to be very important for the lore because it's actually going to talk about the Tsihu from a closer perspective. And I won't tell you exactly what yet. And if you're interested at all in the novel, chapters 1 through 7 are free to download. If you just join our site at my.adr.com, ember.com, you can download the first 7 chapters of the novel. And then toys. Yes. People want toys. People want Ember mechs and stuff like that. Now, we're talking to a miniature manufacturer who does some really good stuff, and I think that's going to be pretty interesting. All right.
What about that Thumper bust plushie? We get any word on that?
The Thumper plush? Or the bust plush? Or the bust plushie?
The Thumper, the basically the bust of the Thumper as a plushie.
I thought you were talking about bust and booty plushies.
That's a whole different thing. I mean, I don't know. That's a whole.
Okay, I just gotta be clear because the community asked for assless chaps one day, so I never know where you guys are going with this stuff. You guys are filthy minds.
Hey, it's my job to represent them. Okay. So.
Yeah, I know people want plushies. I do have someone who can help with that, but the merch, I don't know. Do you think would you guys be interested in merch if we had it at Kickstarter or launched the store with merch? Any merch, all of it. What about beanies? Mech build kits.
Ooh. AKTA hoodie.
Hoodies, t-shirts. Here's I'm going to cross my arms because I'm like, here's my problem with t-shirt stores. I don't like generic clothes. T-shirts are one thing, right? But sometimes the digitally printed t-shirts are really kind of crappy. They're printed really thin. I don't like that. But at the same time, we don't want to stock inventory, right? We don't want to have to go out and rent a warehouse to store t-shirts and in business they call that inventory risk. What if the shirts don't sell? Then not only did you waste money making them, but you're paying for the warehouse to house them. So I want, if we find a t-shirt maker that digitally prints shirts on demand and does fulfillment and shipping and has high quality shirts, then that's a no-brainer. So if you know of a company that makes good t-shirts that aren't just really cheap and thin, let me know. And I hear you on the store. So maybe we'll have someone look into that on merchandising and start doing some stuff, because I know that's really popular. The dev team would love shirts. I'm sure the community team would love some shirts. Help us make that possible. Help us find a good t-shirt company that doesn't make lame t-shirts, that actually prints on high quality name brand t-shirts. Like, I don't know, who makes good t-shirts? Hanes?
If we have too many, we can store them at Jedi's house. I believe he has some.
Oh, you volunteered? Okay. No, I don't think there's going to be a store before Kickstarter, Dartum. It's like Dartum is worried it looks too much like a cash grab if you have merchandise ready when Kickstarter isn't even done. No, I think it'd be post Kickstarter. I don't think there's a lot of profit in merch. I mean, I could be wrong, because actually I say that, and yet if you talk to American McGee, and in his Alice game, he says they do a ton of business with merch, and it helps them fund the game too. So maybe it's a good thing. I don't know, but they do new merch every month. Boy, they pump that out. And he's in China, so he can do that. I don't know if I can do that. But I talked to him about custom merch, like if we were to do a plushie or something like that. Body pillows, Dogoth asks. Yeah, we would do a body pillow. I'd totally be into that. I mean, not personally, just as a sales item.
Grum's body pillow.
Deep Strike mouse pads.
I heard that Grums is even more cuddly than he looks.
So soft. All right, everybody. I'm going to keep this a short Chief Chat. Thank you all for coming. And we will be back on Thursday with a build. And we will be streaming the build. And we'll send out updates on that. I'm also going to update the Indiegogo and Change.org petitions to let those folks know where Ember is now. But thank you all for joining me and talking about some MMO drama, and for me giving me the chance to explain my approach to monetization and what we're planning for Ember. Which, if you just tuning in late, we're going to do an indie price for the game. And there's going to be an optional subscription for things like cosmetics. And we're not going to sell power at all. And no gotchas. There are not going to be any gotchas. And there's cosmetics you can buy and unlock. And there will be crowdfunded expansions and DLC for the game based on interest. And that's our general approach. And stay tuned next week for the glider demo. Stay tuned on Thursday for the glider demo. No demo next week. We're going to take a break for that. And we'll come right back to it. And then after that, at some point, we will unveil the Thumper encounter, part 1 of the encounter. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining the stream. And we will see you on Thursday in-game in the new demo. Unless something goes horribly wrong. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks.